Yeah.
How much? It's actually kind of interesting that you bring up you learning about omnimancy because that
Mm-hmm.
was like sort of one of the. It was sort of one of the topics that I kind of had in mind today. Not omnimancy specifically, but just the
Mm-hmm.
different ways that people can learn magic, because it's not all just picking up a book, and because like that's hard for a lot of people is just sit down and read a book, right? Not a lot of people can talk about that. So I don't know, I guess I just wanted to talk, like, just see, like, from all of us, like, what ways that we enjoy learning magic and what ways that don't work for us, kind of thing.
Well, I'll kind of dive in on that because like I was just talking about studying omnimancy. And I did like agree to keep certain secrets in there. Hi Chris, if you're watching. um Chris is the guy who's teaching me in omnimancy. I'm just using his first name because y'all have no idea who a Chris is. There's a million Chris's in the fucking world anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Several million. So it's the most vague name I could possibly give you in existence.
Maybe Bob. But we know a lot of
Yeah,
Bobs.
I was gonna say Bob.
Chris, Bob, and Joe. Holy, you made it. You made it tough for anybody to try and track you. But yeah, it starts off kind of simple. Like you're doing, here's how to make a ball. Here's how to make a ball with a tether so you can draw energy off of a given source to power it rather than putting it from your own external energy and burning yourself out, which is fun because that's a trick I learned when I was younger. When I grab energy for spells, I don't draw it from inside. That's why I don't get burnt out in the same way. But I do sometimes make a mistake, like I did a couple days ago. I'm like, I'm gonna shield everybody at the Pride March, and I put it up. I'm like, wow, it worked. This is great. And like 30 minutes later, I'm like, I am stupendously tired right now. Like,
Gee, I wonder
physically
why.
exhausted.
You wonder, that takes a lot of energy.
I dropped it. I mean, like, I got sources for it, but I didn't tether it all correctly for that one. It's complicated. It's complicated. But to quote Chris, you'd be surprised at how many high level problems you can solve with magic by just making a ball with specific coded intent, right? Gathering the energy, focusing it, and then just fucking throwing it. Like the guy has really advanced magic for shit, right? Like this
Throwing
is the guy
magical
who I was.
rocks at things.
Yeah, this is the guy who's like, oh yeah, you want a cure for lactose intolerance? We got that. And
Mm,
like most people be like, that sounds like bullshit, right? I haven't had a lactose reaction in a week now.
interesting. Yeah, I was my intrigue was definitely piqued by that. I think I do want to like sign up for the next whatever session of Omnimancy
Yeah, I mean,
whenever
and
it
here's the
opens up.
thing, it's free. They don't charge you anything. They don't even like take away the stuff that they've taught you when you leave, unless you leave on bad terms,
Hmm.
sort of thing. And even then, there's a lot of stuff they can't take away. Um, so like they're actually pretty chill. And if you join, it's like they do it the intake once every year, sort of thing. So you would start with a class of people. If you do it next year, you'll be in the same class as Fish, which you
Mm,
learning Omnimancy by Fish sounds fucking amazing, actually.
that does sound pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, and there was a few other Dick Moo who wanted to go in the next one. Not to
So
name any specific names.
is it all like just like in a Discord kind of thing?
Yes and no. So, Omnimancy is from like 1993. It's like legit a 30-year-old magic system that's been going for a while, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of closer to like Wicca in how much traditions they have developed unto themselves in that time period, because Wicca's been going for a hot minute, right?
Right,
And I'm
right.
not talking the we are an ancestral unbroken lineage. No, the
Yeah.
fuck you ain't. Come on now.
Right, yeah.
Nah,
um,
I think Scott could probably back me up. Like Wicca really gained popularity, I would say like late 60s, 70s is like when Wicca, like I would say like as a term, as a religion, as like a witchcraft practice, and maybe even before the 60s, but like I know like if you just Google old Wiccan text, it's around the 60s, 70s mark, which
Yeah.
is it makes sense.
So-
Flower power and hippy dippy and all that.
It's when it jumped. It's when it jumped the pond. The 60s,
Exactly.
70s is when it jumped the pond. The 50s is when it was invented, and then jumped the pond around, the hippy dippy era, and that's when it came here to the States.
There you
Yeah.
go.
But why I really do recommend Mnemosyne to a lot of people who are interested is because it's free. It's free. It's free, and it's free. That they're not gonna like.
And if it's free,
sign you
it's
up.
for we.
And it's not like I've been going through it, right? Like I know what cult red flags look like as somebody who is involved with spirit science. Believe you me, I know what a cult red flag looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't had one of them yet, right? Like the most they expect out of you is to, if you stay long enough, to eventually teach other people, because like with any system, you have to pass it on for it to survive. And for a system that works kind of like making people into magical scientists, so you come together and peer review each other's work, the success of the group is dependent on having people who are willing to participate with the group, right? Like for example, in martial arts, when you learn Taekwondo, for example, by the time you're red belt, you're teaching the blue belts and the green belts and the yellow belts, right? A lot of systems that have formalized structures like this will in fact expect you to turn around and teach, because that's one of the tenets of what they consider mastery, right? And when you do an
That's
Omni
really
test,
cool.
they're basically like, teach me about this, right? So they'll give you a topic. I can list some public facing ones, obviously, like cyballs or shields, right? They'll say, okay, info dump on me, like I am a noob and I've never done a cyball before, and explain it to me. And they'll rate you based off of how you info dump it and then how well you can actually do said act later on, right? And then it's a series of progression steps. If you have trouble with stuff, they work through it with you. They don't just like judge you based on your abilities, and if you're not good enough, to get out of here. You
Yeah.
know, no. It's
Not
it's
like
meant
the
to be like a
Masonic
system.
tradition of magic.
No.
It's meant to be a tradition that is for anybody, even a complete noob who's never done magic before. So if you want a 101 system and you really like energy model stuff, astral model stuff, if you really kind of like the idea of coding and like using technology and like programming mindset in your magic, you're going to do great in Omnimancy, right? And if you want something that's a little bit more material and hands-on, like say you want a Vajrapani, not that's just specifically because it was on my altar. You're gonna want to do something a little bit more hands-on, like a traditional witchcraft system, right? Like we brought up Wicca. I don't necessarily think that Wicca should be everybody's 101, but for a lot of people, it's a very decent 101, right? You're gonna get a lot of basic stuff in it. You're gonna get like your visualizations. You're gonna get your energy working. You're gonna get your ritual observations. You're gonna get your god form and archetype understanding, right? So there's a lot of things that you're going to get out of any of these fundamental systems that you don't get if you just like turn on the internet and
Just
show up
on
the
one.
DK and go, wow, how do I learn magic? And we say, go to somebody who teaches it. Hey.
I have noticed though, like
Exactly.
I've been doing some really base Google searches lately, like witchcraft, magic, occult study, stuff like that. It's really hard to find. I think it's harder to find websites now than it was like
So
in the
glad
90s,
you're saying
2000s.
that.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Does everyone
So,
else realize?
actually-
It's all ads to shopping links.
Can I tell you something about this? My partner is telling me about this. That's not just a problem with the occult, it's a problem with Google and the algorithm, because
Yes.
everything in capitalism has become about gaming the
Money.
algorithm.
Mhm.
It no longer gives the proper search results like it used to do 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I can explicitly be playing a game, Light Brigade VR. I can take the exact level. I'm having a glitch in. I can type in PSVR2, Light Brigade, Ashen Depths, level 2, castle glitch, where stuff spawns in on a layer on the castle I can't access, right? You take Google from 10 years ago, it'll find you that exact fucking problem and give it to you, and you'll find out what to deal with it now. I had to stop using Google go fucking search a subreddit for it to find information. And on a
Yep.
subreddit, somebody else had asked the question and then it could come through it, right? But as far as using Google and search engines, and shitification has happened so thoroughly that most search engines, if it's not tied to ad revenue, will not show it to you anymore, which is like super fucked up.
It's so fucked up. Like, it's so
I
fucked
think
up.
Scott wanted to say something
Beardy.
about that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying. I just realized similarly that it's been really difficult to find. And you all know me, so like for me, it was always like I have to make sure I'm wording my searches very specifically in Google
Mhm.
now to be like even sometimes like putting in folklore and mythology isn't so simple anymore.
No.
Like even that is like what I'm noticing is that and it's funny because as much as I love like the fact that the occult and whatnot is on like an upswing just in entertainment, I actually think some of that's pretty cool. But the thing is that the more we add to that, the more that becomes the
default search.
right. Like
Yeah.
you start looking for like anime characters, or you're looking for TV show characters, etc. And I'm like, no, I'm looking for. I'm looking for these spirits for my occult practice.
I'm like, do I have to subscribe to
That's
academic
also-
databases and journals now? Like, is this where we're at?
Yes, yes,
That's
you
also
do.
something that happens as well, not just with witchcraft, but like here's an example of something that frustrated me. We all know what a kayak is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Katie has one.
the indigenous watercraft that like
Yeah.
anybody around here can use. Did you know that white people went and took that name and made a travel company now called Kayak that you get as a
Yeah.
top search when you Google it, and it's like
Same thing
that's
as
not-
Q-tip and cotton swab.
Yep.
A Q-tip is a cotton swab. But Q-tip,
the
Mr.
brand.
Q-tip, bought cotton
but at
swab.
least Q-tip isn't an indigenous word.
That is very
invention
true.
that white people
No,
came and
very
same
true.
example.
just fucking lifted for a fucking business model, right? So
Very
like,
true. It was like so like I'm doing the gray school, so I'm working on my gray school studies, and one of the in like the different departments they post challenges in the forums, and in the lore department, which is actually run by our friend Dean Stefanowitz. Our friend Jim is actually the dean of the lore department. No, defense against. I don't know.
No, he's the
he's
dean
the
of
dean
the-
of
he's
defense
the
against the
dean of
dark arts.
Against the
That's
dark arts.
right, but he is a professor in the lore department. So anyway, so he posted a challenge or something like that, and it was about cryptids. Like it was like to talk about local cryptids. I was really trying to search. I was trying to go hyper local about it, and I was trying to search for cryptids like southeastern Pennsylvania cryptids or like Philadelphia. Philadelphia specifically doesn't really. Nothing really came up for anything cryptid related to Philly specifically. I think Gritty is probably our closest thing to a cryptid that we have. But
He's literally Lucifer walking
You're in-
on the
you're in
earth, so I wouldn't
Philadelphia.
classify him as a
Right.
cryptid.
but the thing that I
where's
did
the
stumble
New Jersey
upon,
Devil?
yeah, in New Jersey, across the bridge,
New
across the
Jersey's
river.
not too far away.
And I did think about
It's
that.
another state, though.
I did think about writing
Yeah,
about
but
the
dude, those
Jersey
are
Devils.
so those lines are arbitrary settler fucking things on a map and
Different
a fucking
indigenous
cryptid.
area. Different indigenous area.
But
We live
what
on.
I'm saying is a cryptid is like an animal. It doesn't know those maps and those locations. It's gonna
Right.
always go.
Yeah. It was just for
True.
the purpose of the challenge. I was trying to find something because it was about write about your local cryptids, and so I was trying to find something like hyper super local. But I found this thing called out in Lancaster, so it's maybe like an hour or two drive from probably closer to an hour and a half to
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hour to an hour and a half.
called the Albert Witch, and it's this this small humanoid ape-like figure that translates roughly to like apple snitch or apple stealer is kind of what most people sort of agree on. Kind of comes from like the Pennsylvania Dice, a couple Pennsylvania Dice words that got all mishmash together. But what's interesting is when I was writing about it, I'm writing up my post. I did make sure to note in there like the native tribe who it belonged to before, because it's all about like, oh, this was settled and blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, but before that, like fucking people lived there, so like we should mention that. But what was interesting is that tribe had like on their shields, they had like shields, and they drew like this humanoid ape like figure was on their shield. So I don't know. I just thought it was a really cool thing. But when I was searching for this damn thing, it was like the hardest Google search I've ever done in my life, because it was just popping up the same like 6 articles from like the same sources, and it was just like regurgitating the same information in a loop over and over and over again, and I couldn't find anything else. And I'm like, you mean to tell me I have the whole fucking internet in front of me, and like I can't find a goddamn thing of what like I can't find anything more than just like a little stupid article about like this festival or whatever? Like I can't find anything deeper, like anything more concrete. No, nothing. It was very frustrating.
Have you looked up the squonks?
The squonks,
Squonk.
yes. Jim mentioned that in his post. He took my damn idea. I was going to write about the squonk, but then he mentioned the squonk in his prompt, and I was like, bitch.
I love the squonks. They're so cute.
Yeah. For anyone who's not, what you want to share what the squonk is? For anyone who's not familiar.
Okay, so let me see. So squonks are specifically a Pennsylvanian cryptid, and these little babies are supposed to be like, they're very sweet cryptids. Their whole thing is the fact that they're like non-violent, but they are very depressive creatures in that they are not very pretty to look at, and they're supposed to like secrete like a slime. And the cool thing about them is, I'm gonna age myself a little here. If any of our viewers or anyone on here remember Andy Mack, or not Andy Mack, that was Disney. What is that show? The girl who could turn into like a chemical ooze from when we were on Nickelodeon. Remember, there was that
Yes.
she got
Yes. Yes.
I don't remember
yeah
that show.
they can essentially
It's from the
turn
late
into, like,
80s.
Mm.
It's like late 80s, early 90s. I know because it was literally called like it was like I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, I could
Continue,
see it.
Scott. I know
could
what
see
you
your face. And anyway, they can turn into a puddle and move as a puddle.
Mm.
And they do this when you see them because they're so ugly, but they want to be like loved, and like, they want people to like them, but they're very not pleasant to look at. And frankly, I really want to see one. I'm just going to tell it how beautiful it is, and it's going to be my friend forever.
The squonk,
Okay,
as you're
so
familiar.
Scott, you need to come over because we have one. That's what's in the basement. I'm not lying. That is I thought it was a hobgoblin.
No,
That is the closest. It's a squanch.
There's no squonk in the basement.
I'm just saying.
There is no
I'm
squonk.
joking. I'm
I
telling
literally
you
would.
though,
I will astral project to your house.
right now. Do it.
I will go upstairs and get my flying ointment. And...
Whee! Honestly, that's the best way to travel the city.
It's the best way.
It's a big city. Let me just grab my
No,
flying
because if
ointment.
you
and...
go back
Could
in
you
one of our
imagine?
previous podcasts, I mentioned how so obviously Jay has been down with a broken foot since May 18th. Current recording is June 20 something. I don't freaking know the exact date.
25th.
June 25th. Look at that. June 25th. When he broke his foot and I was like having to do everything around the house, I was doing laundry downstairs and something drew a smiley face in the lint on the top of the dryer. And I flashed back to the first time that you, Scott, came over our house, and you're like, it's like Grand Central Station in here. There are things constantly coming in and out, coming in and out, coming in and out. I'm like, I got scared when I saw the face because I was like, what in the world drew a face in the lint? And instead of getting scared, I was like, I'm a witch. I'm going to do research. And so I got a bunch of books on on house spirits, on Celtic spirits, and I have this little Fae deck that I was doing readings with while I was reading all of those books. And I was like, it's a hobgoblin. Like it is like, I know cryptid Fae, different, obviously. I know they come from, but I was like, it's a little tiny creature. Its home is here. It likes being here. And I think I saw the smile. It was actually a frowny face, and I saw it, and I thought it was like something mad, but it was actually, I think it was just sad because Jay broke his foot and Jay couldn't do magic downstairs anymore. And ever since then, I've turned every surface of our house into an altar. as you and I'm like, I have a little Mexican, like the little chihuahua that's running around, and we got the ancestor altar, and Lexa has seen my grandmother walking around the house now, and you said
Told you.
squonk.
Oh no, that was Jay's. That's right. I
I know,
Jay's.
but Lexa's been here, and Lexa has seen her full body. Like, she's like, there's a little old woman walking around your house, and I want to say hi, but I feel like it would be inappropriate. I'm like, "Mom said hi. It's fine." But that's amazing. Continue. Here's my sideline.
No, no, I just like squonks. That's all. We were just talking about the squonk. I
Yes.
Yes, the squonk is a very interesting little cryptid.
Flinch.
We feel sad for them.
I do.
Go out, find your local squonk, tell it it's pretty.
He's a pretty squanchy. No, but you said the change into a puddle of water, and literally me and Jay were just talking about me and my mother. Excuse the foul gesture. I'm gonna get a tattoo right here of the ring of Wonder Twins. I'm gonna get the animal one, obviously, because I'm the animal spirit, and my mom's gonna get the one where she transforms into water, because we constantly do like Wonder Twin powers activate. And you said, and we were like, I turned into a pail of water.
That's cute. I love it. The Wonder Twins. Wow, I remember that.
We have a viewer. Happy Sunday from Canterbury.
Say Mio Kisika. Who's here?
Canterbury? They followed us.
Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, we should definitely get Forrest on for an episode, because before I was always like, I don't know when he's gonna be free, but like he's teaching Sunday classes with me for the next 2 years. Like he's free.
Free on Sunday. So, but
There you
we'll
go.
do like what we can disclose to the public primer course on Omnimancy. So for anyone who's interested in Omnimancy, how do they sign up? How do they find out? How do they get into the next session? What do they do? Contact
They're gonna
Sophia.
talk to Chris. No, they'll talk to Forrest when he comes on the podcast. He can explain it better than I. You basically have to go to the Omnimancy forums, right? If you Google Omnimancy, you can find them. If you find a website that looks like it's from 1998, congrats, you found the right one. It really
Excellent.
should look like it belongs on Angel Fire, and like they
Excellent.
haven't updated pro boards past
That's how you
1990.
know it's legit. I'm telling you, people, that's how you know it's legit. Because we don't care about coding and making it look pretty. We just want the fucking information to be there.
And then you're going to sign up on the forums, which are tied to it. They have a forward-facing Omni site that gives you information on that stuff. When you join the forums, it's just like joining ye old forums, like way back in the day. So
Beautiful.
if you're going to get asked a question, you have to know the average unladen speed of a swallow.
See what?
The average unladen speed of a swallow.
See?
And none of you know the answer?
Nope. Guess we're not
I
studying
do. I just
Omnimancy.
wasn't saying it out loud. I got a message from Jess Marina.
Pagan Pride people.
Yeah, Pagan Pride. It is the season.
What's the answer to the average unladen speed of a swallow?
No idea. Zero ideas.
Speed of sound, which is
African or European?
Latin.
No. It's a Monty Python reference.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a Monty
I'm
Python
not a
fan.
Monty
Holy Grail. What's the
I
average
thought you
unladen
wanted the
speed of a
actual-
swallow? African or European?
Yeah, well, I guess I
See,
wouldn't
I
be
went
studying
to-
Omnimancy.
I went
because
to
I would be like,
science.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Oh, that's actually why I kind of want to send my best friend their way, because I was like, yeah, I signed up for this magic group. You only got to answer one question to get in. What's the average airspeed of an unladen swallow? And without missing a beat, he's like, African or European. And I'm like, you're in.
Oh boy.
Although you obviously have to apply and then do it during an intake period. And during that intake period, they'll have people go over your shit and be like, do we want them? Do we not want them? And if they like you, they will pull you in for an interview. And if they like you in the interview, they'll get back to you when they put the class together. And then you'll have the option of either doing the Monday night class or the Sunday night class now. Because we got that started up because there are people in Europe who wanted to learn, but expecting them to come at the 10 p.m. class on Monday, that's
Right, yeah.
4 a.m. in Italy, right? My friends in Italy just couldn't do it. And I can't commit to a 10 p.m. on Monday class because my work can go to fucking 4 a.m. on a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I have to work through that, I just have to miss a class spontaneously. So that's just not doable. Sunday slot, I can always take Sunday off for religious purposes.
Good to have that.
So
talking
I
about
can
that
now
in
do
the last
Mnemosyne on that.
Yeah, it's good to
So
have that.
like, yeah, that's how I actually got into it, right? And then it's like on part there's a Discord server that they'll invite you to once you're in on it, right? And you're doing your lessons and shit. A lot of it's done through like, I wouldn't say third party, but like Google type call stuff, you know. And then there's like the websites, and then they have like a private database for users that you can read stuff on. There's like a whole bunch of stuff to it. There's like little segmented bits on many different platforms that you get as part of the curriculum over time. And yeah, completely free. I can't say enough good things about Mnemosyne other than it's also not for everybody. So there's plenty of people who sign up for it and either feel like this is goofy or this isn't for me, or like sometimes their inner self panics and are like, no, get the fuck out of here, you shouldn't be here, you know, because they don't want the person studying it for whatever reason.
Right,
So,
they're just not there yet or ready or whatever the case may be.
well, what I've heard is that apparently sometimes inners cannot want you to do that because they don't want you to get too big and be able to do certain things.
Well, that's not fun.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Look, it's complicated, and you'll get the whole shebang on inners and all that shit when you sign up next year, because I have a feeling that you're going to.
Yeah, because like I've been enjoying what I'm doing with the Gray School. So because school is one of the things that I know how to do. School, I know how to study, and I know academia, right? And that's so I will say so. Another way to learn magic, if you're looking to learn magic in a sort of formal sort of setting, if that's your thing, like if you're very much an academic and writing papers and stuff and being all smart with other wizardly people is your thing, then the Gray School of Wizardry might be a good path for you. It is a paid course of study though, so it's different from like what we were talking about with Mnemosyne, how it's like this kind of just like, you know, I guess sort of like garage band sort of group of people. So this is a little bit,
it's more hidden society
yeah, like more hidden
and
society, yeah.
less
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, so the Gray School, like they actually do have a physical location located in Whitehall, New York, and they do have some, you know, like classes that you can take in person. They have like events and stuff out there, but the majority of it is online. And also, if you're into Second Life, they have like a huge campus on Second Life that you can you know, go around in. Now, in terms of its like aesthetic, it is very, I guess, sort of there's a Merlin, Harry Potter, Wizard in the High Tower vibe from the school. So I mean, you know, if that's your jam, you know, that kind of, it's fun, you know, it's a fun aesthetic. But what's cool about the Gray School is that it is it's a secular study in magic. Like you're learning magic in all of its forms. Like you're just learning a little bit of everything. They have like 16 different departments of study. This is not a paid ad or anything. It's just I'm doing this, and I think
He is a student.
I am a student. I am an apprentice. And it was kind of I was thinking back to what you were saying earlier about like the different levels within Mnemosyne, because in the course that I'm taking right now, like we were kind of talking about that. They were talking about like the three kind of, you know, steps in wizardry or just in occult practice and study. Is like, you know, first you're starting out as an apprentice and you're learning from either a teacher or a class or a school. You know, you're like in a state of like
That was a good angle, huh?
What was that?
That was my phone flipping towards me.
Ah, fun.
I caught it though.
You did. Um,
If you want to see bloopers, go to twitch.tv/
let's look at it on YouTube later.
or look at it on YouTube later and you
See
can
all
see
the lovely bloopers. We're doing it live, people.
live.
Get what the fuck I was saying. But anyway, oh yeah, and also they sort you into different lodges, so it's based on your sun sign, your astrological sun sign. So all the fire signs go in the Flames Lodge, and then they have like for all the different signs, and then if you are a minor, you can still sign up. I do believe you have to have parental permission, but they will sort you into the Psyche Lodge, and that's what they use for like people under 18. So it's kind of cool. Like it's and there's like a whole Discord community. So if that is something that you're looking into, something that's like kind of more academic focused, there's a couple ways to pay. I think you could pay for like a whole year. Like it's like 200, I think, or 300 for a whole year if you wanted to do it that way.
Pretty that's pretty on the nose for what you should be paying for a course load for Magic. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
take a decent amount of credits all at once. So like, and it is very much go at your own pace kind of thing. So you want to take on 6 classes at once, you want to take on 1, whatever you want to do, that's fine.
You want to do the Hermione Granger thing where you fucking
Right.
rewind time and shit so you can study
That's
more.
like
Whatever,
almost
do
how
it.
I did college.
Straight up. Oh.
Yeah, that's like almost how I did actual college. But I'm
Fuck.
and what was the other thing?
Well, if you're trying to remember, I can just pop in and say, yeah, I cannot say enough about how much I appreciate applied magical study. Like, this ain't throwing shade at nobody specific, but just far too much of the occult community does fucking nothing, literally nothing for applied practice. And they're like, I am a witch. And it's
Right,
like,
you have to do what you're reading about. You have to do what you're studying about. You got to do something. Like, what's the point in
The thing is-
obtaining all this knowledge? You have to be doing something.
I have space for people who have a very syncretic practice where sometimes they have to just live in the moment and do shit like that. I get it. I know that there is that kind of synchronicity magic, but like those people can literally say, I live in the moment, I catch synchronicity between things, I watch subtle nods, and it's like the spirits are guiding me. That is a practice. You're chasing synchronicity and actively looking and pursuing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether you're meditating, whether you're fucking doing cyballs, whether you're doing tradcraft, whether
Yeah.
you're giving daily devotional offerings, there is intrinsically an act of doing behind magic. And even studying is doing because you're researching, right? The rubber does have to meet the road, otherwise you will get teased and get called a rub. Oh, my echo. You will get called an armchair if you don't do anything. But even then, I don't even think armchairing is that bad because armchairs eventually do shit once they hit a critical mass of theory, right? Like,
Hopefully.
once you awaken as a magician and you understand the nature of consciousness and how it spreads out beyond just your corporeal individualized self, you're doing it anyways, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to it, and you have to have a level of deliberation. Otherwise, you're just letting the current carry you on instead of swimming. But no one's gonna fault you for treading water instead of drowning, right? Just don't say you're fucking swimming a marathon if you're treading water, right? It's
Right.
basically it.
It's
Very
it's funny.
true.
This is purely anecdotal, but I've met a few armchair practitioners who I've come to realize were more afraid of what they had and what they had learned. And in a lot of ways, I think that fear comes from a lot of things. I mean, like one of them, a lot of it was sort of the leftover like witches open portals, and I was like, we don't open portals unless we want to. We can rip the veil apart, but we often don't. I was like, we could do whatever the fuck we want to do. I said, but like, it's a matter of like, like for me personally, as somebody who whose framework is primarily set on a spirit model, I don't go messing too much with the ethereal landscape without expressed consent from the spirits in and on the land that are already there that call it home. I'm not interested in fucking with them or making them uncomfortable. But that's not to say that like I don't know how to make a place haunted if I wanted to. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like I could.
Like,
Well, if we were
watch
talking about
me.
that Mnemosyne, somebody gave some of their shit to a ghost just to see what would happen. And it's like, you gave a ghost an energy machine, and another ghost showed up. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen? And then the funny part was someone was like, wait, what if we did this deliberately before we do OmniCon and have everybody show up at a hotel that we pre-haunt in the distance?
There you go. That's how you take
Oh.
over a building.
Speaking
So
of
you-
hauntings, I'm starting to see the intersection between paranormal science and witchcraft now, thanks to Kindred Spirits, that particular show. Because I've been watching these people.
We're gonna get
like,
Amy, Bruni, and Adam on our podcast
right.
now.
I'm sure we are.
I love Amy. I love
would
you,
be
Amy.
ideal.
You're just
Look, as
mwah.
far as Hollywood connections go, if they happen, they happen, but...
Oh, they're not
I don't
Hollywood,
even
honey.
think-
They're local. They're local witches.
They're not.
Well,
They're
okay,
do
well, I
not
thought you were
not
referencing
witches.
actors or
claim,
something who
you
did
know.
shit.
No.
They do not claim the title of witch, but these people are doing magic on TV and like
On
working with
TV?
spirits on TV.
With
It's-
Greg and Dana Newkirk.
Yes, with Greg and
The
Dana
four
Newkirk.
of them are like, you know, the only people I listen to in the paranormal.
Yeah.
Hello.
Because really, I was flipping
Hello.
through
Like
the
the
other
only four
shows.
people that I'm like, I think you know what you're talking about.
They really do.
I
Because
just
their
want to
whole
be Chip
angle.
Coffey's apprentice, please.
Mm.
That's who I want to apprentice under is Chip
Michelle.
Coffey.
See, I do love Chip, but I want to. I'm actually thinking about Michelle Belanger.
Not familiar with her.
She is really big in the psychic vampire community. She has. I'm actually not even sure what her doctorate's in, but she's technically Dr. Michelle Belanger.
Oh.
But she is one of the most incredible psychics I have ever seen. And she has like courses and stuff for like $20.
That's pretty
Like if
good.
you go on her
That's
website,
cool.
her courses are like for 20. She has like a mediumship course, which yes, please. Make my talking to ghosts easier, please.
Right.
So her like courses are super cheap and affordable, and like she's just amazing. And I really want to mentor under Michelle Belanger, like really bad.
Michelle. Spell her name?
Michelle Belanger. I can't pronounce. I always just have to type it in, like, and it just corrects me. I just type Michelle Belanger paranormal, and it corrects me.
Oh, I think I'm gonna try the same thing.
There you go. Make Google work for you.
Oh God, excuse. Michelle. Michelle
It's
Valley.
technically pronounced
That's
like
not
Ballinger, but it's pronounced
right.
Belanger.
With a
Belanger.
Yeah, that's basically whether or not you're pronouncing it with a French connotation or an anglicized one.
I think
Exactly.
It's like-
I think it's her family. I think pronounces it
Here we go.
Belanger.
Michelle.
Yeah, it's like when Americans say presage instead of presage. Hurts me to my core every time.
Is she sort of like a? She looks like a butch. Kind of like a butch.
What happened?
Speaking of modern occultists.
No, I was saying she's like
Kim-
she's kind of like. Is she like queer? I think I found her website.
Yeah.
She's sort of butch, I guess.
She's openly. She's talked very recently about being intersex.
Ah, okay.
And she is married to her wife.
Mm.
They have this bed and breakfast called Inspiration House, and you can actually ghost hunt in Inspiration House.
Ooh.
But you can stay there. It's
I
all the
hear
way
a
in
trip coming.
It's all the way in Ohio, but like, you know.
Oh, that's not far.
It's not terribly far. It's about 8-hour
That's
drive.
not far.
Guys, I figured it out. A magical business that can succeed without fail.
What is it?
Okay.
Ghostbusters.
We buy a old abandoned hotel.
Yep.
Don't even keep it up to code,
Yep.
but deliberately haunt the ever-living Christ fuck out of it.
And charge
Okay?
people to go do
Didn't we
Ghostbusters.
all watch
Just hear me
American
out.
Horror Story? Don't we know?
Just hear me out. Just hear me out. Listen. You're talking to magicians about it, not fucking amateur little baby witches, okay? You set proper words and criteria for what you can allow in, so things only under a certain threshold with certain capabilities are allowed to happen. Also, you set liminal space controls so that they can only have certain levels of manifestation that they're capable of doing without doing certain levels of like malefic energy, right? It's gonna take a bunch of people to do it.
You're talking
But if
Jason's
you could
Woods.
if you could like literally set up a deliberate area and charge people to come there to ghost hunt in a deliberately magically cultivated hotspot that could get scientific results.
I can achieve that.
That actually, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I've actually had ideas
That's-
like that before. I'm not gonna lie. I've had ideas like that before. I really have.
Why don't we just raw dog consensus reality like that and be like, look, bitch, you think magic's not real? God damn it ain't.
Seriously, though.
Well,
Seriously,
I think
though.
one of the things that really blew my mind on that Kindred Spirits show was we watched them program an egregore.
Yeah.
And it was
Literally.
the most insane thing I've ever seen. Like, I understand egregore theory, like, I get it, but to watch two people that they, like Amy and Adam, they don't claim to be occultists. They're paranormal investigators, and that's what they call themselves. But the work that they're doing is so much like the work of the witch, is what I would describe, you know?
I love. There was an episode where they proved magic on TV, and I absolutely love that with the iron nail, the iron
Yes, the
the
railroad spike.
spike,
The railroad spikes. Yep.
and the spirit couldn't leave, and I was like, "We told you so."
Yeah, because the guy who was using the railroad spikes imbued
God,
it
we
and
gotta read a
said,
book.
you cannot cross the threshold
Also-
of where this spike is, and it wouldn't do it. But the craziest thing was the zombie boy egregore. I have to. We're watching like episodes back in the past, so people are probably like, "Yeah, Jay, we fucking know." But anyway, I'm gonna talk about it anyway because it blew my fucking mind. These people, it's like this place. They get this grainy photograph. They think it looks like a zombie boy, so they start calling this thing Zombie Boy, and people make shit up about Zombie Boy. Well, they were getting some activity around Zombie Boy, like when they mentioned the name. But it was kind of weird, like the responses they were getting. And so they were like, I wonder, and they literally said, I wonder if this is an egregore, like this is something that people have created, you know? And so they did an experiment. They programmed things about Zombie Boy. They were like, Zombie Boy's dad's name was Edward. Zombie Boy likes, you know, like cars and whatever it was. They just had these list of facts about Zombie Boy that they wrote down. And then they went into the room that the spirit was inhabiting, that it was most strong in, and they sat down and they said with clear intent, like they were not fucking around, and they just said these things. They spoke these things, and they programmed Zombie Boy. And then they did, I can't remember if they did an EVP recording or that spirit box
They did
thing.
an EVP the next night.
So
that's the thing. So they programmed him, and they brought didn't they bring in the other two that you were mentioning, Scott?
I
when
don't
they
know
were
if they brought in
programming
Greg
it?
and Dana for that one.
But they programmed it. They went to bed.
Yep.
They left it in that room all night, came back the next night, and did an EVP session in the same room, asking the questions, what is your dad's name?
Edward.
And it said, Edward.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
And I had to like pause the show. I was just sitting there with my jaw just like on the fucking floor, and I was like, and people are saying magic is a fucking real. I swear to fucking God, I'm gonna burn
This
the
is what
world
we
down.
learned to weaponize with DKMU. You can also use memes to spool them up, and memes have a certain level of energy because it hits many people, and many people can feed it who aren't aware that you're implicitly feeding an egregore when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So like people, when these things gain traction and have the ability to start manifesting through synchronicity, they'll reach out to other people who weren't even necessarily like initiated through like the creation of it. And like there's this one guy, my friend Z knows him. He's not a magician, he's not in DKMU, and when he does his like channeling rage posts, he writes more Torch God shit than a lot of people do, right? Like one of them was like, there are certain goods that only a devil can commit. Tear their grins from their faces, and I'm like, oh my fucking
Eesh.
god.
Eesh.
If you know, you know.
Mhm.
Scott over here is just like taking notes.
Mhm.
Got them.
But that just blew my
I
mind on that
actually-
show, to watch people, like, to watch magic become more real, whether that's through fiction or non-fiction, you know, whether that's through paranormal investigation shit. Like, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I think I now need one. I want to purchase some of this equipment for myself, like just like the cheaper items, like maybe like a
Mhm.
little recorder or something like that, because
I would love that.
I'm trying to now verify what all, because it's kind of like they use Chip Coffee as a tool in their investigations, because they get their
Mhm.
recordings and their EVPs and whatever they see, but then Chip comes in and he's just like, I see this, I hear this, and he basically
Murder.
just confirms everything that they kind of got out of their readings. And so I kind of want to do that, like in my own house, like people that come in here that are very psychically, you know, tuned, inclined, whatever, and they say your house has got a lot of activity. I don't notice it, but I kind of like, maybe by introducing some kind of like technology that I've seen actually works now, because the first time I did paranormal investigating, it was not a very good experience. It was kind of but now that I've kind of
It
watched,
was traumatic.
I wouldn't, yeah, it was
Sorry.
just not the best
For
but
me. I was
yeah,
saying for me.
for you,
Continue.
yes. But yeah, I think I just kind of want to get some of this equipment now, just like a couple recorders, maybe a little K2 meter or something, just to kind of like see and
Mhm.
test and experiment and verify, like, is it all right? Where y'all at? Like, let's
like
hear
to
ya.
circle back to two things. One, I do believe that it's helpful to deliberately magically saturate an environment to put your thumb on the scales, because we're dealing with something that's really ephemeral when you're dealing with paranormal, right?
Mhm.
If you expect to try and just find it out in the wild, it's like trying to catch lightning in the bottle, right?
Right.
But you can also okay, basically, here's a really good metaphor. Trying to have paranormal activities is like trying to have lightning strike a rod.
Mhm.
It is a known phenomenon that happens at different locations, but trying to control it may seem ephemeral and completely nonsensical
Right.
until you really dive into how lightning works. And then you understand, you put that lightning rod at the highest location, it's going to conduct to it, and you're going to get more lightning strikes on that than anywhere else. So
Right,
lightning
which is
doesn't strike
why
twice
when you
unless it's the fucking
use
CN tower, which is the highest tower in the area with a lightning rod on top.
right, which
Right.
is why, like, when people bust out the Ouija board or the talking board or the spirit board or whatever you call it, like, that kind of, to me, I feel like works as that lightning rod. It's clearly a device that works
Yep.
super well, and spirits go, oh wow, yeah, okay, let's go. Now, of course,
And
you know,
also
that
what
also
I'm
invites
sorry, go ahead.
everything to come in, but you know, that's why you
Well,
got to be clear about who you're
depends.
trying to clear about who you're
You
trying
can
to
also
dial up.
like this is also why I'm going to circle back to like get a magical practice, get a magical practice, get a magical practice. Because like even if you don't outright say that you don't want certain things contacting you in the Ouija board, if your magical practice is on point, you can set parameters in your working space ahead of time so that energies that you don't want to begin with aren't allowed in, right? So like if I go and I conduct a Ouija board experiment in a full magically sterilized environment, like completely fucking Dexter the area and make sure there's nothing in there, you probably will struggle to get a response, especially if you put up like proper protections like a Saturn square, right? So like context is everything, right? If you go out in the middle of the street in an area with no wards and no protections and you say, is anybody there? You're gonna get a yes, right? If you magically bleach an environment, you're not always gonna get it, right? So a lot of those conditions can be controlled by wards and effects and like even just working with like spirit guides or your inner or like your own shielding systems to, like I said, set parameters for what you find acceptable to allow in and around you, right? And most people who are worth their salt know about shielding or protection tech, and you should obviously be shielding what you're working with in that instance as well as yourself, right? Like if you don't know how to do a basic energy shield, that is the fucking first thing I recommend you learn after doing a basic Cyball, right?
Mhm.
It's Mage 101 for a reason. It's because it's really
I'm
efficacious
also sure it's why
and
it's our
like
warding.
you'll get results.
Yes,
Go ahead.
also
Like-
see our episode on warding. The world
I was
of
gonna
warding.
say probably why our warding and vigil episode is our most listened to in our podcast.
Yeah, that was
A lot of
pretty-
fucking technical information in it. And that's something
Mhm.
I noticed too. The more that we dive into really in-depth technical information, the more people really grok it and fucking like those episodes. Like I get that people also come here because they want the queer opinion, but I feel like what they are also craving is that in-depth technical discussion, which we will veer into whenever something gets brought up, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
I also think there's a
So-
Besides
level. I
queer
mean,
witchcraft.
I think like I
Sorry,
think
Scott, go ahead.
too. I think a lot of it as well is like it's also like there's this trust component to it.
Mm.
I think because we are queer and that they trust us to talk on witchcraft in some way. I've always kind of had this. It's just a feeling, but I've always kind of felt like there's a trust component. Like
Something
other queer people talking about an interest that I also have. I trust them to tell me
Mhm.
some. You know what I'm saying? If you get what I'm getting at.
Totally.
Here.
It's like going to a queer barber so that you know that you're not going to have to experience a hate crime while you're getting your hair cut. People
Exactly.
who aren't
Yeah.
queer may not fucking understand the need to ask for a queer barber, and they might say, doesn't that seem a little pedantic and overly selective? And those are people who've never had a hate crime happen to them in their entire fucking life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you dare just read me out of nowhere, quite literally, Sophia. You literally just psychically picked up on shit. You didn't even, I don't even know if you knew you were doing it. And I was
Do you
like,
need a
how dare
haircut,
you?
Scott?
Reading me through the computer. Like,
Do you need to
damn
get
it.
to the barber?
I'm not trying to, but I've been on that kind of wavelength lately. So
I was like, rude.
So we don't have
I'm
like
sorry.
we don't
Do you
have
No.
see this?
we,
Do you see this monstrosity? I styled this.
we don't have a queer salon that we go to necessarily, but they are such like they're like
They bought my mom's house.
they're like a bunch of like
My
Albanian
hairstylist
ladies. They're so sweet.
bought my house. That's a title.
What?
My immigrant
I have a
hairdresser bought my house.
That's just clickbait. And we
That's
don't-
lovely.
Exactly.
I have a philosophy in life though that allows me to get through a lot of instances, and it's being absolutely truly more terrifying than the people who want to hate crime me, because the moment they start to dial it up, I dial it up to 11 and they dial it down.
We do have a comment
You
here
just
from
you have to know
Canterbury.
how to like have a weapon within reach and know how to menace them with it. Threats of bodily harm
Yes.
do wonders.
We do have an interesting comment here, and it circles back to what we were talking about, like ghost goos and whatnot. The Canterbury in Twitch chat says, "My partner and I live in an old Victorian funeral parlor. There's spirits that
Ooh.
go into the other units, except for ours, because I
Hell
have
yeah.
wards on our entries
Good.
and exits of our apartment. Good, excellent.
Less.
All
Love
the other
that.
tenants talk of an old angry lady, but we've never seen her except outside the door from the corner of our eyes."
Exactly.
Because wards work, and if you don't want to see her in the corner of your eyes, pro tip: extend the wards into the hallway, and she won't be able to occupy that space either.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Also, too,
Live.
if she's
Yeah,
like,
no,
if she's
you're doing
angry
great.
and nonviolent, you can also ask her what she wants. She might want something like perfume or tobacco, or you know, sometimes
Spirits
giving them what they
fucking
want.
love tobacco.
What you call it?
Hey,
You might actually
That
be
was
able
another good
to
kindred
form a
spirit.
relationship
That was
with her, and she might do some like warding of her own. Having the spirits also help you ward the house is also very useful. That's what I do.
It's so funny, Scott. I remember,
Interesting.
like you know, we've talked at great length about my fear of death, my uncertainty with death. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then when Rue had COVID, I had a very easy and clear communication with their ancestors, right? And then I always remember you saying to me, like, you should do necromancy. Like, that's what you should absolutely do. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense to me because, like, you know how I feel about, like, death and spirits and whatnot.
Yeah, and
you know?
like, who wants to have
Mhm.
somebody love their neck like that?
Right, exactly.
Me.
But it's funny, like now I think I've finally realized why you said that to me. I think
Mhm.
it's because I do approach it from like because honestly, like the best way to talk to spirits is to talk to exactly the best way to talk to human spirits, I guess I will say. The best way to talk to human spirits is to talk to them just like you would a living person. Like
Yep.
I realize you don't have to be like, hey, like, hail the spirits of the this and the that, and I bring forth
Yep.
the who's and what's.
Oh, ye mighty
Yeah.
dead, come to me beyond the reaches of Thanatos. Chiron, ferry the spirits to me.
Right,
Eo,
because
eo.
if you do that, like,
Yo, yo.
they might not
Oh, the spirit that I
respond.
seek.
Yeah, like they might not respond because they might be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, I don't like. What is your deal?"
What is this cunt saying to me?
Because that was another thing on Kindred Spirits. They had gone to the house of it's the fucking family in Salem that was associated with the witch. Can't remember.
Pritchett.
No,
No, Proctor.
Proctor. They went to the Proctor house. You know, the whole Salem witchcraft trials and stuff, and they had like a
Mhm.
sigil.
That was a really fascinating episode.
Yes, and they had like that sigil in there, and they were like, you know, the devil card kept coming up. They did have Dana and Greg for this one, and Dana was doing readings, and the devil card kept coming up, but the reason, and they were like, oh god, the devil, you know, like they were kind of freaking out a little bit. They kind of made it look like that on, you know, for the show. But the devil kept coming up because John Proctor is like, you're doing witchcraft in my house. You have tarot cards. You made a sigil to talk to me. Like, my whole family got fucked by the witchcraft trials. Like, you're the devil. You're in my house doing the devil's work. Like, the spirit was very upset, and I was like, oh shit. So like, I think that's something else I kind of realize is like maybe with spirit work or in general is just you got to approach them in a way that is familiar to them, because if you do this whole like occult fucking ritual to call up the spirit of your grandmother, who was a very devout Baptist woman, you know what I mean? Like, it's probably not going to go well for you. And she's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? You know?
Go ahead, Scott.
No, that's why. What you call it? I mean, everyone on this podcast knows I practice a lot of folk Catholicism because of my Italian American background, and my ancestral altar, which I have set up in the living room now. I'm staring at it and everything. I fed them before the podcast to keep us safe and everything, and I have a lot of Catholic imagery. I read a lot of Catholic prayer for them because the vast majority of them are Catholic. I even have a saint that one of the saints that I work with. Saint worship is ancestral veneration, which is a whole complicated thing that we're not going to get into in this episode. But
well, so we could do a whole episode on Catholic magic. That would be actually fun. I think that would be very informative.
Okay,
I also have another idea for an episode. How do y'all feel about actually doing magic on the podcast?
You know, you're doing it again. Stop reading me.
I like it, but
Look,
I don't like it.
I was about to talk about literally reading you because I went and scanned your aura a couple seconds ago. I will not air on TV on the show what I saw, but we're going to talk about it after the episode.
And it's funny because I had my I've been studying geomancy recently, and the more complicated stuff, like creating the whole shield and the 12 houses, and that stuff's a little bit more complicated. So I've just been doing like a more newer fangled, like ask the question, throw it on the ground, read the figure kind of thing, which is acceptable. It's not geomancy proper, but it works pretty darn well if you ask me.
Whatever works for you.
All right. And I actually threw the sticks for the podcast. I was like, yeah, let's see what it says. We actually got Fortuna Major, which is the figure itself is absolutely outstanding, and it just talks about the podcast's almost inevitable success, but not without its like pitfalls. But that's everything, right? So the figure of Fortuna Major is like you want that figure in a reading. Like that's like the figure of Fortuna Major is like a big shining ball of, you know, good.
Well,
it's the sun. Oh, it burns.
The sun does burn today. It's really hot today. Wow.
So the reason I say
ring light.
What are you saying, Sophia?
The reason I say we should fuck with doing some magic on the podcast, because one thing that I learned I was good at through Mnemosyne was scanning and remote viewing practices and aura sensing and shit. Because for the longest time, I felt like I had a psychic blockage. Like I couldn't see stuff like I used to. Because when I was a kid, my vision was fucking stupid. I could just close my eyes and see shit with my mind's eye, right? And I lost a lot of that ability when I had to get out of magic. Also, I never astral projected again, which I'm working my way back up to, right? I thought for the longest time I was not good at sensing stuff, right? Until we did live exercises where Forrest would be like, okay, I put something down in front of you, sense it out, tell me what you feel. And I'll be like, it's this? And he'll be like, yeah, that's spot on. And it was like, for example, just this isn't really giving too much away. It was glue, essentially, like astral glue that you could do stuff with. But the fact that I said it's a ball of glue, which is like out of all the things you could say in the universe of somebody putting something in front of somebody without giving them context, a ball of glue is really specific. But
Right.
then to be like on the fucking money for it, it's like this weird euphoria of, wow, I just actually did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do more exercises and you keep getting hits like that. And you're like, oh, I can do this, right? And so then like we were doing a vision exercise where they're like talking about how to visualize. They even had a suggestion that helped me get back into it, because when I'm struggling for imagery, they suggested taking your aura and pushing it out almost like a sonar wave and letting it hit things and see what it illuminates or bounces off of, right? The first time I did that, it was like whoosh, the whole house lit up. I could see like my altar, and I could see like protective wards on the front of the house that my partner had put there with their herbs, and I'm like, really? And so like I talked to them later about it, and they're like, yeah, I mean, I kind of do it, but I like, they're more like psych model, it seems, so they don't, you know what I mean? They're not like super out doing witchcraft, but they're doing witchcraft, right? And I could like pick that up, right? And so I was like, holy shit. And like last week we did aura sensing, right? But there wasn't a person in our group who I didn't get correct information off of when we were sensing their auras, right? And a lot of it is parsing your own information set in your own system, right? Like maybe, for example, you're trans femme like me and you hate the color blue because it was always applied to you and you do not want to have it associated with you, and blue pisses you off. If you have that association and you view somebody and they're pissed off and you see the color blue and that's what registers for you, that's what's important, right? If you saw blue and got that somebody else is pissed off, and somebody else saw red and got that they're pissed off, that's correct, because you're not trying to get an abstract this is here. You're trying to sense the information and then parse it through your own symbolism set, right?
Yep.
And once you learn that, and once you learn to dial in your symbolism set, it starts becoming so much more fucking tangible. Like it goes from like sensing aura colors to having like full vivid descriptions of like the tactile taste sometimes. Like when I was sensing my friend, they tasted like fucking graphite on their charm, because like I could taste and feel their charm on the exterior layer of them. And then when I poked through that, I could get to their energy, which was like literally yellow goo. It was like gooey, kind of like a ball, and you could like poke it and squish, you know? So like there's like tactile sensations you can get, there's imagery, there's scent based off of like what level your brain visualizes on. Because some people also have things where they can't visualize mentally. They don't have like a mind's eye. So they might have to rely on other input, like suddenly a scent comes to them or suddenly they get a feeling, right? Like you will have to parse out that information set to each individual, but pursuing that is some of the most useful things that I've seen, right? So like we could do an exercise where we sit down, and if we all consent to it, we could reach out, feel each other's auras, and describe what we sense. Aura sensing is kind of one of those things you don't need consent for, because an aura is very often considered like, in Mnemosyne, it's considered a waste product essentially, because you have an astral body, you have astral organs, a whole bunch of shit to it that I can't really get into. But your aura is like a waste product that gets produced and diffused, sort of thing. right? And some people, it's like a deliberately cultivated projection that they put up, right? Like when you're encountering charm systems, it's almost like an invisible layer that you have to poke or peer through, right? So yeah, if we were to do like, say, like aura sensing on the show, that'd be fucking rad, because then we could like see what we get from each other, you know?
I don't know if I'd want to do it on the podcast specifically, but like if we wanted to
Sure.
like another night or whatever day in Discord, and then we could also open that
Mhm.
up to other people. Like if they wanted to come in and kind of join that with us, that could be a really interesting
Mhm.
exercise for other people to join in too.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
I
And
like
then we
that.
could record it, and I could like archive it somewhere like on our YouTube, and we can kind of put it there. But I don't know if I'd want to do it like live necessarily, like on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Mhm.
Also, because
Up to
like
you.
I don't like doing magic live on the internet. I realized, and it's because like we did a ritual with South Street Circle, and I know that we streamed it to here, and like just doing magic like through Zoom sucks. Just
It was very hard to, like, when you think of
because it was like
ritual,
a ritual.
there's
Yeah,
it's ritual, and
Yeah.
there's certain steps to ritual.
yeah,
And one of those steps in ritual is raising energy, pulling energy, whatever, and communicating via the internet. Yes, you can raise energy just like you can raise energy anywhere else, but it's going to be a different type of energy. It's going to be more chaotic to work with, and
Well,
so it may not have the
yes and
same
no, there's-
it
effects.
didn't work for what we were doing
Yes and no.
specifically, but I think in terms of like remote viewing sort of thing, like reading someone's aura, that could work. But I still wouldn't want to do it live.
I've so like I have most of my really serious balls to the walls magic practice has actually been through the internet, because like when you kind of get into astral space, there's like this weird non-locality of it all. It's not like on the astral layer I really struggled to go and find any of y'all, because you just have to essentially think about where you want to go and travel, right? um Ritual is a little different. Like I have done a DKMU ritual on a Zoom call before, although this was back when it was just Google Hangouts and there was no Zoom.
Oh yeah,
It was
Google
chaotic as
Hangouts.
fuck.
Yes.
But there's a difference between doing a ritualized format,
Yeah.
which is a ceremony which has a progression of steps, versus doing other workings. It's not even the raising the energy issue that you're probably going to have issues with. It's knowing how to send it over a distance and having down the tech and the practice for it, right?
Mhm.
Like when you talk with omnimancers and work with them, they do shit at absurd distances, and you can feel it, right? Like when I catch a download, I can like literally feel my palm light up, because that's where I pull it into, right? And the other day, like I was getting overwhelmed at Pride, and I asked my friend if they had an empathy filter, because of course they do. They always have shit planned, and they were like, "Sure, here you go." And when I took it in, it was like 4 times as long as what it normally feels like, and I was like, "What the fuck?" It feels like it was way bigger. And he's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in it, so you got a pretty big download there." So it really does work, but you have to have the practice laid out for it. And if you're used to doing stuff in a localized sense, you're going to have to readapt that skill, right?
Exactly.
Here's a really good example. It's like learning to do burlesque on a stage versus learning to do it as a cam girl. They are related skills, and being good at one will absolutely make you good at the other, but it doesn't relate one to one, and you have to find a slightly different filter and way to run it, if that makes sense.
That does make
On
sense.
100%.
But it's still super doable. And like I can reach out and poke all y'all's auras if you want.
Sorry, I was responding to
Aura.
Hitting-
What are they saying?
So Chris was saying, for a couple of months I was doing remote tarot readings for my step sibling, going through some stuff, and was so very accurate. Like when they gave me updates on their situations, I mentioned my readings and it lined up so well before I even had details. And then they were also saying they would be interested in doing like a little Discord kind of little closed circuit
Hell
type thing
yeah.
of what we're talking about. So that could
Yeah,
be
we should do that some night.
yes.
But like, for example, I was reading certain things off of
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Scott's
No.
situation,
Right.
and I've never met Scott in person.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even been to Philadelphia.
Right.
You know, I've never even done a magical working that was super in depth with Scott, and yet I could still pull information off of them. You know,
True that.
so like, magic, spooky action at a distance works, homies. Just saying.
It does. I just wouldn't
Oh, it
recommend
does.
trying to do a ritual through
Oh, yeah.
it didn't
Completely
work well.
different things.
Honestly, Sophia, I'm not really against the idea of you broadcasting my reading. It won't really hurt me too much.
Do you want to hear what I
Well,
got
yeah,
off you?
if we want to,
Yeah, go for
if
it.
you
I
guys
won't be hurt.
want to,
You
I have
are
therapy.
very interesting. You are very interesting light blue, like almost indigo, like this color, right? And
Ooh.
it was like a bubble, but it had sparkles around it. And I was like, okay, this is like decidedly light and airy, but with like a tangible sense of water behind it. And so then when I pressed my hand astrally onto your bubble to get a texture out of it, the sparkles started to cut my hand. So you have some kind of wording structure in there that is like, I am pretty, I am light, I am a bubble, do not touch or I will catch you. Does that track?
Yeah, so I have this thing where I am very aware of people are often psychic without knowing they are.
yeah, that's very true.
And psychics, witches, magicians, whatever the hell, we, even unintentionally, we have this ability sometimes to influence stronger than maybe people who aren't touched in that way currently to move things. We're different. We move through this world differently than other people do. And I try to hedge off allowing too many people to delve too deeply. Like, I remember one time now I don't even know at the time if I could have even stopped this woman. She kind of scared me. She was very nice. She was very scary. She was a high priestess. She was the owner of a store called Ostara in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. They're no longer open. There's another witchcraft store open now, but in the same place. But I remember it was me, my friend Sarah, and her
Enchanted
her then
Wonders
partner
is a
Ray.
shop out in Bethlehem.
What happened?
Enchanted Wonders. I actually had their business card right here. They're out in Bethlehem.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the new that would be them. And I remember she was talking to me, Sarah, and Ray, and she was like hardcore. You can feel those like tendrils. This lady was like, she had control, and I was like, damn. But like, it almost was like it reminded me a lot. And I know this is weird, but my mom's a phlebotomist. I think I mentioned that. And there's this thing with phlebotomy where they have for phlebotomists who aren't very experienced, they have to dig for the vein.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that she wasn't experienced, but what it felt like was when a phlebotomist has to dig with the needle in your arm,
Not fun.
and it was only on a psychic way, and I was like, okay, this is a little intrusive.
Mhm.
Like, I get that she was
Yeah.
just trying to see who we were, kind of trying to protect herself a little bit. You know, I think she kind of got like these people actually practice magic, these aren't like the
Yeah.
tourists, you know. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of us can be douchebags, and
We
we
can
like
be.
to just throw things at people sometimes for, not that I do, but other people like to throw other things at people for shits and giggles.
Or when
for
we're younger
practice,
and we don't have emotional
as it were.
maturity.
Huh?
I was like, or when we're younger and we don't have emotional maturity yet, and we're like, I'm gonna curse you.
Right, that's another thing too. Yeah.
It's the
And,
moon. Sorry.
Hex the moon.
TikTok callback.
And I remember she was like hardcore.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, and she was like hardcore probing, which, I mean, she was only doing it out of like self-preservation
Right.
and interest, so I wasn't like pissed about it. But there's another person who I sort of talk around on here. I won't want to mention any names, but they also were able to read me and often used it as a way to manipulate. So I started to
Yeah, if they're doing that, it's an attack and it should be treated as such.
right. So I've started to kind of like I want good people to be able to like read and pick up on things. I just don't, it's kind of like there's a hedge there. It has rules. It has programming, as you said.
And to be honest, I could poke through it because there's a couple of loopholes I know. I'll say one just so most magicians are aware of it, because it's not something a lot of people think about. Ward your wards with time magic so people can't access you in the time stream when you weren't warded, right? Because like that's something you can do is you can dip back into time into specific moments, right? Like we were learning that I was doing that with my friends, right? She was going over stuff in her memories. You can dip back to a certain point and strike at a point where somebody hasn't warded causally, if that's a good way to put it. And you can work that into your protections just by like, I don't even want to pretend I'm the best at time magic because it's really fucking confusing when you really start getting into it. But there's like ways to loop through wards through time magic and dimensional fuckery. Those typically seem to be the two workarounds that a lot of people really use when they're trying to step through shit.
So it's kind of like maybe
if you can work.
There's a common
Go ahead.
thing I always got from the Wicca circles that I was a part of early on is like when the circle would be cast, a lot of times they would say, like, we are in a time that is no time and we are in a place that is no place. We are between the worlds. And I really feel that, like magically. And so I wonder if like sort of like to circumvent people trying to get you through time magic, right? You could kind of instill that into your wards. Like this ward exists in a time that is no time and a place that is no place. It exists in the
That seems
in the
like a
worlds
good added
between.
layer of protection that you should absolutely put on your shit. Yes.
Because I didn't even know that was a thing that people were fucking with, is time stream. I should have known it was a thing, right? But I didn't realize it was a thing that people were doing.
Yeah. Not everybody's gonna do it. If you're fucking with somebody who's gonna pull a time stream to hit a ward or poke through it, they really seriously know their shit. So I'm not sure you're gonna ward around somebody at that level, but still, it's something that if people start figuring out that they can poke in on, it is a way to bypass certain systems, right? So yeah, try to shield for temporal protection as well as like dimensional protection, so somebody can't sidestep it by like jumping into another dimension and then jumping into this one and the point on the inside of your ward behind the hedge, right? Things like that. So yeah, it's also funny because the more that you study really ridiculous magic, the more it starts to sound like anime and fucking roleplay, but then shit happens.
It does, but in order to study magic, I know, so like we're at 1:17, so I guess we should start thinking of concluding thoughts. Because
17, that was good.
What? Oh yeah, 1:17.
You said minute. Yeah, hour.
Oh, I said 1:17.
You said a minute 17. Thousand Island Stare.
So that's the new slang.
Yes, we've been here for 1:17. Yeah, so we're at like almost like an hour and 20, and I know you have you're on a time constraint, Sophia. But
I have timed it. Don't you even worry. I still have another 20 minutes before it's problem territory.
So I was just thinking like something that we went to the diner this morning, and we were kind of like talking about this amongst ourselves. Is like there was a time when being a queer person, you were revered. You were considered maybe God touched or spirit touched, or you were considered to have this other power, this otherness about you, and that otherness was sacred, right? In depending on the culture, right? There was a time when that was a reality for people like us. In this current, I guess, batch of time of human history, that doesn't seem to be the case. But now there seems to be like a sort of a reawakening of people realizing like, hey, we do have our own power, and I do realize that there is a ton of queer people in witchcraft, and there's a ton of queer people finding this, and it's not pure coincidence. No, not everyone is gay and a witch all of a sudden. It's like, no, we're just like, we're queer, and like we're reclaiming what you took from us. We're taking our power back, kind of thing. And that's something that I have been trying.
Anytime I hear there's a whole bunch. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to interrupt.
And that's just something that I've been trying to sort of reclaim for myself. Is like I wake up and I'm I don't want to be like that. It is thunder that I hear, right? Okay, sorry. I think we're about to have like a thunderstorm or something.
Good.
Yeah. But that's something that I've been trying to keep in mind for myself. Like when I wake up, I'm like, listen, yes, you got to work this job. Yes, you have to exist within capitalism. Yes, all this shit is happening, but you are still magical. You are still a wizard, a witch, a mage, whatever name title you want to give yourself. You are still working within that current, and you are magical, and you have access to a thing that other people can't see. And I don't know. It's just
Sense.
They can't
yeah, like
legislate.
right, that they can't legislate, that they can't control. And the whole reason that they took that away from us, the whole reason why they erased our history and they just like they try to burn everything to the ground and hide everything
Because
is
they're
because they're
afraid of us.
terrified of that power. And so that's what kind of has been keeping me going, is remembering you have access to that power.
There's
Magic
a,
is
Oh my
real, and you
gosh.
can weaponize it to kill your oppressors. Go ahead, Scott.
T. Thorne Coyle,
Hmm.
author of Evolutionary Witchcraft, fantastic book. I suggest it to everyone. She recently said something very poignant, but I don't remember the whole quote. But all that really matters was that magic is inherently queer.
Yes.
And of course, she describes why she says that. And interestingly enough, another author, one I mentioned previously, Michelle Belanger, also recently said that in an interview with Matt Warren she just recently did. The magic itself is inherently queer, and I truly stand on that, and that is because queerness stands between two. Queerness in and of itself is liminal. Queerness
Yes.
stands between two places at all times,
The sacred
always.
masculine, the sacred feminine, the moon, the
You know,
sun, the this, the
societally
that.
I'm
accepted,
not
not
gonna show
accepted.
my nipple on. No.
It stands between it, counterculture, and
Mm.
our existence is liminal.
Wildlife. That's what my titties.
It is, because it feels that way, because it's like we go by different names, or like we were a different name. I was it's weird. It's almost like I feel like I was a completely different person, but I'm still the same person.
Mm-hmm.
It's really strange. But I don't
Yep.
dislike it.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's powerful, frightening, awe-inspiring, but and I think it's good. You should be afraid of it. I think you should. I think there should be some fear, but it shouldn't be fear that stops you. You should
Right.
have courage. You should be courageous in the face of fear. That's what courage is, right? I think to be queer is to be courageous.
Yeah. And even
At
though
least
like people will
and
be
don't
like,
get me
"You're
wrong,
so
like it's.
brave."
So brave.
Like,
I
yeah,
think
I
that
fucking
Sorry, that
am.
was
mean,
the Karen in me.
no, it's okay. I think that it may take some people time. Like, I don't think that you have to be brave right now. But I think that, yeah, I think that you should find a way to find courage if you don't already have it.
Preach.
So brave on the graves of your enemies.
Yeah.
Totally off topic, but yeah.
No, I'm so glad you were able to join us, Scott, for this. I'm so
Me
Yeah.
too. I was
Missed you,
excited.
homie.
I was like the other day. I was like last night. I was like, oh, you would today, and I was like the whole night before. I was like, okay, please don't be like tomorrow morning. I'm like, please, Jay, don't be like, hey, you ready for podcast? I couldn't sleep,
Oh no.
and then you were like, hey, you ready for podcast? Like, god damn it! Like, ow,
Well,
your foot hurts.
it's always Sunday. My foot is actually doing quite better.
I know. Good. I know. I heard.
Yeah.
I took
No,
him to
but
the
yeah.
zoo and I healed his foot.
Yes, the zoo taught me how to walk again.
The
God
zoo. I
bless
want to go back to
Philadelphia
the zoo.
Zoo.
We're members,
Oh,
so we
anytime you
can.
want, we can go.
Did
Right
you?
now.
Speaking of
Okay.
ghosts, did you guys go to the spooky house? The
Which
haunted
one?
house that's on the property.
No.
That old house. It's right. You had the. It's
Oh, the one that's like up the steps or whatever.
Yeah, that house is
Yeah.
super haunted.
It was a little inaccessible for my condition at the time, but I do want to go back.
Scott, stop.
We were
No,
talking about that
because
house when we were there last. Yeah.
It's known haunted too. Like
Yeah.
people
It's the
investigate it.
Letitia house. It was on the Underground Railroad. I was giving him a whole tour, Scott, because like I worked at Zoo Tower. I worked there for almost a
Oh.
year.
Shit, I didn't know that.
Yes, I worked at that Amtrak tower, and I almost got hit by a train there, like literally because I saw a lady walking across the tracks, and I followed her, and I almost got hit by a train.
Was she
But
real or
that's
was
for
she not a person? Like
no,
a
she
living
wasn't
person?
a real person.
A
She
living
wasn't
person,
a
we
real.
should say. She was a real
She
person.
wasn't a
She was not
living
a living
person.
person.
No, and
Gotcha.
that's a topic for another podcast.
Yeah, we'll
episode.
talk about haunted location. Oh, we should do that too. Haunted locations in our city, like where we are. Like Sophia can talk about. Where are you at now? I always get confused.
Toronto.
Because Toronto.
I have
And
a
there's
whole book
Toronto's
on.
really haunted.
I have
I
a-
only really not
Here's
recently.
here's the locations in Toronto that's haunted. All of it's because it's stolen land. There you go. Dun,
There it
dun,
is.
dun, 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 dun.
Alright.
Alrighty. So
Yeah. But this was an amazing,
Until next time.
good recording. I'm only like 3 now, but 2 episodes behind on Buzzsprout, so I'll get those uploaded this week, so everyone can catch up.
Fuck.
Oh no, Sophia's things are breaking.
Don't drop the contact.
Are you
I feel-
good?
am I
Notes on
hearing
that.
Whatever.
thunder? I think
Whatever.
I don't know. I feel like it's
Yeah,
about to
my name
storm,
is
so we
Thunder,
should probably.
bitch. Cast that shit.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Thunder and the
Go
lightning.
out, go out,
Cut
take your
the
pop
podcast.
up, stand in your, bear your titties out, and go get that thunder.
Tits out for
There you go.
Thor. No.
Motorboat the thunderhead.
Woo! Alrighty. Enjoy
Bye.
your afternoons, everyone
Bye,
here, and
everybody.
everyone in the
Bye.
chat. We will
Call
talk
it
to
so
you
I
all
can
later.
say stuff afterwards.
Alright, we will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Okay, so are we off?
You're gonna